The video you're about to see is a compilation of many months' work on converting the Big7 special brakes to hydraulics. It went through several incarnations. The first one didn't work very well because of the back plates, as you'll see, but finally I managed to get the thing to work properly. It is rather a long video, so it's taken over many months of trial and error. I will summarise at the end of the video the sorts of stuff you need, the tools you need, the where to get all the kit from, where the suppliers of the equipment, etc. But I think you might find it useful, as I say, if you're converting a Big7 or an Austin 7 for that matter. The Big7 axle, heavy axle, was a major issue which I had to resolve. But as I say, finally resolved it after many months of trial and error and effort. So I hope you find it useful. As I say, I will summarise the video at the end with all the bits and pieces that I've learned, and hopefully, say, you find it useful. Well, finally getting towards the end of this conversion of the Big7 special brakes to hydraulics. Run across numerous problems, absolutely, you can guarantee, can't you? Obviously modified Morris Minor back plates and shoes, springs. You'll notice down here I've had to use these retainers. These happen to be Honda Accord SFK 197 retainer clips to retain the shoes, because the springs are in front on the Austin, not behind the shoes. The shoes pull away from the back plate, so I had to drill and put those clips in to hold them in place. But quite a successful job that. Really pleased with the way the fronts went. The fronts were reasonably straightforward. It's the backs that have been the baddie. Big7 axle is different to the standard Austin 7 axle in that it's got a flange round the back here, and I'll move around to show you. On the back of this axle there is a flange here, an extra D flange with a strengthening rib here. I'll move the light round, see if that helps it. If that helps in any way, I don't know whether it will. So different from the standard Austin 7 backplate conversion, I've had to modify these even more to be able to get them to fit. Now you'll see that that's about this section here. I've had to pull this section here right forward to allow the room. Also with the Big7, finding a place for the actuators to go has been a nightmare. You can't fit the brake cylinder. I've got it at the front here, still in trailing mode, and I'll get bear with me 2 seconds and I'll get you right. Here's the rear brake cylinder. It should be like this, with the handbrake mechanism on. Now the problem with that is there's absolutely no way with the Big7 axle that you can get it either in this position here at the back or at the top because of the bump stops and that, so it's had to go here at the front. Now the problem with that is the spring is in the way of actuating the handbrake. An absolute nightmare. I have been unable to find a way round this So what I've done is I've got rid of the handbrake mechanism, and hopefully over there you can see a hydraulic lock-off. Now, rather than have a handbrake, which is still left in place at the moment, rather than have a handbrake, which I can't get in no matter what I try, I've got a hydraulic lock-off valve, so that I can put the foot on the brake, turn the lock-off valve, and all four wheels, I decided to put it on all four wheels, not just the rear, will lock in place. So as you can see, that was one of the problems. As you can see, this goes here and it's very tight on the spring, but it does clear the bump stop and what have you. But you'll notice something about the front of this cylinder, and I'll get it out in a minute and show you. Oh, come on, it's playing silly buggers. Right, you'll notice that it's very flat on that surface there. The original cylinders are very round like that normally. Yep. Now what I've found is the standard Lockheed ones, the old ones here, were fine, not a problem. But these repro ones that come from the Modis 1000 Centre, you'll see they're a lot bulkier, a lot wider on their dimension. Can you see that side by side? Absolute nightmare. So when I fitted these, what happened? The back of the hub caught the cylinder. So thanks to the hard work of Simon Woodhouse, we've checked on this, and what we've done is we've machined a whole damn lot off the top of that. As you can see, it's a lot flatter. So hopefully now we will have it, there'll be enough clearance now for that back plate, for the hub rather, sorry, as it goes round. So that's just some of the issues that I've had up to now. Again, I've had to use these, rather than use these damn things, which are bloody awful, the snail springs, an absolute nightmare. I've drilled the back plate and I'm going to use these clips so that it holds the shoes in place. So you'll also notice that I've cleaned up the half shafts and blued them up and checked them. It's important to, over the years I've learned that make sure the keyway isn't sitting proud and not allowing it to lock onto the taper. In the first axle I ever rebuilt, I got new Woodruff keys and they stood proud. I didn't realise I wanged them on and turned that, and all it did was shear the pin off, the Woodruff key off, and make a damn mess of the half shaft. So you'll see that it's all nicely polished, cleaned up. I've blued them up with micrometer blue and checked them to make sure that there's a nice tight fit on those, and made sure the key is the right depth so it doesn't drag. Right then, I'll turn off for now and put this lot back together again, and then record them back again in a bit. So now here is my Big 7 back axle setup, and you'll see that I've had to put, because of this problem with the axle tube, I've had to fit the cylinder at the front, which meant I couldn't put the handbrake, which comes out here, because of the springs in the way. So I had to do a rapid think about that, and I actually installed a hydraulic brake system here using a shut-off valve. Now that has proved unsatisfactory, so I'm now going to try, as I say, with Simon tomorrow. I've got my spare axle with him, and we're going to have a look at what we've got to do to the axle back here, and I'll show you back here if I can without this light doing too much damage to the filming. You'll see that, well, I hope you can see that, I'll show you better tomorrow, that this is not round here. It's got a strengthening rib here, and this is not totally round. So I believe what I'm going to have to do is try and cut this off somehow. We'll look at the so that we can put the wheel cylinder here and use the brake linkage off the Big7, the rod brakes that came across here that come from the front. I'll show you those in a minute. So we can use the rod brakes for the handbrake. Now, one of the issues we're going to have is, get under here far enough, is that the handbrake actually only moves 2 centimeters from fully off to fully on. This is the rod going forward to the handbrake. Can you see that? To the handbrake linkage. So we can't extend that really, because looking at that, it's so close to the floor that I'm not going to be able to adjust that. So we're going to have to do something with the brake compensating quadrant at the back. So that's the only thing we can think of. So tomorrow we're going to have a look at that. As I say, we've only got 2 or 20 mil or 2 centimeters of movement between fully off and fully on the handbrake there. So we've got a work cut out. As you'll see on the torque tube there, the pinion tube, the bolts are equally spaced all the way around. That denotes the heavy axle, which has got heavier, larger half shafts. They strengthened up the half shafts. So that's the position we're in. Oh, another thing to note, when we bought the wheel cylinders from the Morris Minor Centre, ESM, they are repros. The original Lockheeds are smaller, and we had problems with the fouling the hub, the hub bolts there. So Simon had to machine these down. We managed to machine these, put them on the miller and machine them down, which I suspect we'll have to do with the new ones. You'll also note, I thought I'd do this while I'm at it, that we've had to machine a hole through the drum here, the same as they do on the Morris Minor basically, to allow us to adjust the adjuster, which is here. Oh, can we see? Which is here. So to be able to adjust that, we've had to put a hole in the drums. You'll also notice I haven't used the Morris Minor retaining clips. I found that they were a right pain with this hub here, so I've used I've searched around. There are several ones we can use. I'm using the mini ones on the later ones, but just so you drill the back plate to put this spring clip through to retain the shoes. So hopefully tomorrow we can get and understand how we can shift this round from here to here, and we actually get a handbrake. Oh, good morning. It's Saturday morning and I'm in here in Simon Woodhouse's workshop. Good morning, Simon. Simon has done a lot of work for me in the past. He converted the original back plates from the Morrison 1000 to the using the the Austin 7 back plates. Today we're going to try and sort out the problem I've had. I've got running my Big 7 on hydraulics at the moment. The major problem I've got was that when we got the plates, which for the standard Austin 7, you'll see there's not a lot of difference there. This is where the slave cylinder goes. There's not a lot of gap between there and there. Now I've shown on the early axles, or the light axles, as we've got here on the Austin 7, you'll see that this is perfectly round around the back here, perfectly round. Now on the later, this is the early axle with the 3 bolts, 3 at the top, 3 at the bottom, whereas the Big 7 heavy axle, trying to walk slowly so not to shake the camera, the Big 7 heavy axle and the later Ruby later had these 6 bolts equally spaced around the pinion where it meets the diff. Sorry. Now if we look at the Big 7 axle, I'll turn this on its side slightly, you'll see that it isn't totally round.
Just
it's got
when you put that into editor.
I'm going to have to turn it round.
Yeah, I'll start again.
Yeah.
Cut that bit out.
Right, I'll cut that bit out, I think. There we go. If you can see in here, it's not totally round. It's a different shape altogether. It's got flat sides and a round bit and a fillet strengthening there. Now that fillet strengthening there stops us from having the cylinder at the back here. That's what's causing us the problems. So today, with Simon's help, hopefully we're going to trim this off, which will allow us to get this in, but we'll see when we get a bit closer as to what's going on. While Simon's taking the brake linkages off, this is a standard brake linkage off the Big 7, I'll look at these cylinders and the issue we had with these cylinders. Now these cylinders are readily available from East Sussex miners, but here on the left you'll see is a standard, the AP one, the early ones, and here is their repro ones. They're brilliant, good stuff, no problem at all, except if you look at the height of those, they are thicker, and that caused us a problem, and we had to machine off the top. Got it in Simon's miller and machine off the top so that it didn't catch the hub as the hub went round. I'll show you that a bit later. One of the main issues we're going to have is that we're going to try and utilise the Big 7 brake linkages for the handbrake. The problem with that is this is the linkage here that goes up to the handbrake, farther up, but the amount of movement that we've got on these expanders is only 2 centimetres. 2 centimetres movement on the handbrake so we've got to try and find a way of adjusting this bracket here so that when we've got 2 centimetres of movement on there, we've got enough movement on the handbrake mechanism here that will go in here to actuate the handbrake. So that's going to be one of the major headaches we're going to try and resolve today. So I'm going to take these old back plates off, a 1/4 width, moving these bolts while Simon removes the rod linkage from the compensator. I think that's going to be our major issue, trying to resolve the only 2 centimetres of movement on the rods. and get enough movement on the back handbrake linkage. You alright with that?
Yeah.
Is it coming?
Yeah. I'll take this off and just drop it in.
Yeah. Oh.
Look at the paraffin. Degrease it a bit.
Okay, this one, I'm going to drop the whole lot out.
Yeah, because this is seized up. So.
While we're on it, one of the reasons I took this axle out, after I'd rebuilt it, spent many hours rebuilding it, I only managed to do about 200 miles, and we seem to have a lot of play in the pinion, which I couldn't understand because I'd done a really good job on it, in inverted commas, and I'd religiously lapped the taper on the half shaft and the hub, religiously lapped that in. The problem I had was, and I didn't realise it because I'd got a spare axle, so it was quicker to change the axle than investigate. The problem was I'd bought a new keyway for the half shaft, and when I tightened it on, I hadn't realised the keyway was too tall, not by much, but too tall, and it wasn't locking on to the taper. So a big mistake there. So something worth checking when you're doing your rear hubs is, yeah, by all means lap them on and get a good seal, because that's the best way for it. But if you use a new key or even an old key, check that it isn't binding on the hub itself. That turned out to be the problem. So as I say, I needed to take the axle out if I'd have just realised. How's it going? It's C solid.
Solid, that is.
Oh, well, that's C solid, that. Mind you, it has been stood in a rainy garage for a number of years, so no, we'll get it out in a minute. We'll get this off.
I'm just thinking what that's on there.
Yeah.
I'm not fighting that then, am I?
No, I'll say why you got it screwed in.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So now we've got the back plate off, you can see that we've got this section here, as I say, with the extra fillet there, and to try and get this on there, we're going to have to take some of that rear off. We're going to have to cut some of that to allow this to go on at the back. Simon's had a look at the gap between there, and it's roughly 10 mil, give or take. So he's marking up on the back plate, on the axle shaft there, the 10 mil that we need to take off to try and get it to fit. We're going to use a grinder, I think, aren't we, mate? I think it'd be easier, won't it?
Easiest.
Yeah, easiest. So we'll set up a grinder now and grind 10 mil off and see how we get on with that. Rightio, so Si's marked that up now. That's what we're going to take off with the cutter, a grinder. We'll cut that off and then see how we get on with that. Yeah, so he's got a very nice thin cutting disc, as we can see. What's it? 1 times 2 and 22, 1 mil.
I've got 1 and 1.2.
Yeah, that 1 mil be nice and thin to have a go at that. You're alright with that, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, I got it. Yeah, so Simon's going to have a go at cutting that off for us. Lots of spark. That come off nicely.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And it hasn't made too much difference to the back if you look at the back. The back web. While trying to get this to fit now, which should fit nicely, we've come across another issue. The pin, it won't lie flat because it catches the grease nipple there. Can you see that? Catches the grease nipple on the end. So we're going to have to grind down the weld here on this. It shouldn't make any difference, but if we can get it down flat there, that should clear that that grease nipple etc. there, and get us out of a problem. Yeah, well, so we've ground the end off that now. Grind the top off so that you can see that it misses the there we go, misses that bleed nipple now. So now we've got the back plate securely fitted and the cylinder in place, we can now start looking at how we connect the rods at the right level to, so we're going to have to drill another hole in here, about there I think, in the centre, to put to allow the rods a fairly straight pull on the arm. So hopefully that will, it's looking nice now, it's fitting nicely round. We'll do the other side later when I've got this side sorted. Right, having had some lunch, we've found the problem with these cylinders in that there's a lot of free play before anything happens. Try and put that on there. And you see that, the amount of play before anything starts to move. So Simon has done a mock-up using a bit of plastic
PVC card.
PVC sheet, so that there's no now that's moving directly, as you can see, whereas that one's moving that much before anything starts to happen. Yes. So we're going to need to remake the actuation arm. You'll see we've also put a hole farther down. We're going to take this bit off in the end. The actuation, we've actually moved the hole, the actuating hole down to there on the arm. So hopefully that looks like it might do the job now. So I'm leaving, I say, Simon to have a go at that for me while I'll undo the other side and strip the other side down. So having got the one side sorted, I'm now going to machine off, or grind off that, cut off that section again that we need to on this one. You're going to do it outside? Smooth it off. So as with the other side, that's the amount we cut off. Very little indeed. It's still left the fillet there, look, the strengthening fillet in there, and we've had to again grind away at this to miss this part of the so as we can see, there, nice fit now, nice clearance all the way around. Good job. Meanwhile, there we go. Simon's been cutting some new actuating arms out of what size steel? 6mm?
6mm, yeah.
Out of 6mm steel. He just used that on the bandsaw and cut them off, and he's just about to drill the holes in there and finish those off. So while I've been doing stripping this axle, he's been doing that. So here we are back home, and now I've got to do what we did to my spare axle on this axle. So I'm going to take the brake pipes off, take the hubs off, take the back plates off, see where we stand. So that's the next move. So using Simon's patent hub removal tool, I've slackened off the half shaft knot with my trusty torque wrench. So now I can get out and get the hub off and take it from there. Now I struggled to find a socket deep enough to fit this hub nut, but I did find this open-ended spanner. I think I need to again, it's a bit tight. Try and get it. Ooh. Ooh. Get a bit of bar. Finally got it through. Managed to use my torque wrench to get it free off. Oh. This is a 48mm spanner, by the way. Now I'm going to take the brake pipe off, and I've got a couple of bungs here to stop the brake fluid coming out all over the place, hopefully. I'm going to have to modify these pipes anyway, so once I've got this off, I'll sort out. Hopefully these bungs will fit. There she goes. There we go. Not very secure, Let's see if I've got a better. Hopefully these might be a bit better. Well, I think they will be better if I can get them on. She's not leaking too much fluid out anyway, which is good news. There we go. That's got that on anyway. That will allow me to take this off so I can get the cylinder and everything out. Now it's just a case of getting these backplate retaining bolts undone. I can leave the shoes all in place because I'm taking it off as a whole. There we go. That's the hob off. Now what I've got to do now is mark up this here where we've got to cut that bit off to allow us this to go on that way round rather than the other way round. So we'll see how we get on with that. As we checked with the spare axle, it's 10mm the difference between there and that edge, so we can mark up 10mm on the axle casing to cut off. So I've marked my 10mm off down here. So that's how much has got to come off. So we'll get the grinder out now and take that off. So I've put the hub back on. I've tightened the nut up to 100 pounds feet. And this is the new back plate, and you'll see the slave cylinder hasn't been machined, and yet we still miss. It's damn close, as you'll see, but we do clear the hub, which is good news. So we could fit a standard. I've fitted a later 8-inch Morris Minor brake adjuster here. It's quite significantly bigger than the existing 7-inch one. I've had to file the brake shoe grooving the brake shoe out to take it, but it gives more adjustment, so we'll see how that goes. Right, I'm going to get the rest of the hub on now and get it all back together and then start on the other side. Right, well that's that side buttoned up. Obviously I haven't done the brake rods yet, but that's that side buttoned up for now. So I'll get the other side done. Start on the other side now and see how we get on. So I've slackened off the brake adjuster and got the drum off, and now we'll get to undoing the hub on the half shaft nut and taking this off. I'll take the brake pipe off as I did on the other side before we take this off, so I'll do that now. Right, so I've removed the back plate off the axle now on this side, I just got to get round to assembling another one and cutting this bit off the back there now. While I've got them on the bench, you can see the difference between the adjusters, and you'll see that I'd had to build that adjuster up. That's a standard one, and you'll see that I've adjusted that up on the back plate to give enough adjustment. And rather than go for that, what I've done this time is I've gone for the Morris 8-inch brakes. Excuse me, Morris 8-inch brakes, which give much more lift. So you can see that between the two of them, it gives much more lift. They're a lot beefier. But what I've had to do is I've had to file or enlarge the end of the brake shoe there, so that sits nicely in the brake shoe like that. So these are Morris later Morris Minor 8-inch brake shoe adjusters that I'm putting on there instead of those modified 7-inch ones. You'll also see that I have flattened the spring retaining clips. If you look at another one, that's how they should be. But I don't use the Morris Minor retaining springs, basically because they're a pain in the backside. I'm using either these are I've got a couple of different ones. These are another one. The mini ones have got a spring and a pin through them. He's just trying to find the mini ones that he's got here. Got mini ones here somewhere amongst all this lot. Mini one too. This is a mini set, and we use those caps and the long stems with the big springs on them. I find they're easier to get on. Not easy, but easier to get on. What we do is we drill the back plate there and there to get the pin through and allow us to put the pin and clip on. So I shall have a go at that now, and then we can move forward. Having cut off for tonight, I'm calling it quits, and I'll carry on tomorrow. Turn this light off. Yeah, having cut the back off there, cut a little bit more off this one than the other one by I slipped a little bit, but there we go, it's okay. So that's it for tonight. I'm just going to call it quits and start again tomorrow. Well, I've got a new toy today, a gimbal and my phone, so hopefully we can get some decent shots rather than my dodgy shaking hands with the other camera. Right, I've used the new 10mm blocks here to give us, so that it actually does lock up on the brake drum when we got the adjustment. So hopefully that will do. I've put another spring on there because the original springs are a bit short. Oh, not that. The original springs are a bit short. A bit too short, I think. So I've used a mini one there. I'm only hoping it isn't too strong and causes me problems with the brake actuator mechanism, because that's the next issue, whether there's too much strength on those. You see, you've got, I'll have to see. I'm not convinced, to be honest with you. I'm going to have to play around with this for a little while. I've got to get the other one off the other side and try and mess about with that, but hopefully That'll be, see what is that doing. Right, good morning, and I thought I'd do a little bit this morning on the cam adjusters that I'm using on this brake conversion. On the left here you'll see the standard Morris Minor one, the 7-inch one, and on the right is the 8-inch adjuster. And now I've tried using the the difference between they both lift about 8mm from the flat non-adjustment up to the full adjustments, about 8mm total. So they both do about the same, give or take a few. But this one starts at 14. If I get the vernier on this one, you'll see that starts at, well, hopefully you can see that starts at 14mm or 14.5mm, whereas the standard 7-inch one starts at 10mm. So you've got an extra 4mm of adjustment. The only problem with using the 8-inch ones, which are far beefier, as you can see, got far more about them, is that the little groove in the little groove in the brake has to be filed out. The standard 7-inch one obviously is a lot smaller. Can you see that on the shoe? So because that's the 8-inch one is more beefy, I have to file that out slightly, and obviously you lose a little bit of that extra mil by filing that out. If you can see that, to make that fit there. Hopefully you can see that. They're far beefier, so well worth considering, but as I say, you have to modify the shoe just slightly to file it out so that it actually fits. Anyway, going forward, I'll drop that on the floor. Going forward, I'm not going to use the 8-inch ones. I'm going to use the standard 7-inch adjusters, but I've actually welded on, or got Simon to weld on, some blocks. These are 10mm thick, so we've got an extra 10mm before we start the adjustment, because I had problems with the drum, the wear on the drum. The drum had been skimmed a couple of mil. I've done the measurements on there. The drum had been skimmed a couple of mil. So I've had these built up, and using the standard, you can see the difference between that and the standard one. And you'll also see that these are the you can get from ESM, East Sussex Miners, the higher, more adjustment, more movement on them, so you can actually buy some extended adjusters. So I'm using these, the extra 10mm, which will give me a lot more adjustment on the brakes. Hopefully that explains it. I'm going to put these back plate back together again now, assemble it up. As I said in the previous video, trying to assemble these brakes up on the car with the hub on is absolutely non-starter. Yeah, you have to be, well, I don't know what you'd have to be, Houdini or some sort of thing. The only way to do it is to take the hub off, remove the hub, and then you can assemble them. But even doing that on the car is a nightmare. So I'm preferring to take, I know it's a lot of work, but having to take the hydraulics off as well, but it's easier to assemble them on the bench, put them together, and then put them back on the car. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to reassemble that that now, and then we can make and I'll come back to another video. Right, good morning, and I thought I'd do a little bit this morning on the cam adjusters that I'm using on this brake conversion. On the left here you'll see the standard Morris Minor one, the 7-inch one, and on the right is the 8-inch adjuster. And now I've tried using the the difference between they both lift about 8mm from the flat non-adjustment up to the full adjustments, about 8mm total. So they both do about the same, give or take a few. But this one starts at 14. If I get the vernier on this one, you'll see that starts at, or hopefully you can see that starts at 14mm or 14.5mm, whereas the standard 7-inch one starts at 10mm. So you've got an extra 4mm of adjustment. The only problem with using the 8-inch ones, which are far beefier as you can see, got far more about them, is that the little groove in the little groove in the brake has to be filed out. The standard 7-inch one obviously is a lot smaller. Can you see that on the shoe? So because that's the 8-inch one is a bit more beefy, I have to file that out slightly, and obviously you lose a little bit of that extra mil by filing that out. If you can see that, to make that fit there. Hopefully you can see that. They're far beefier, so well worth considering, but as I say, you have to modify the shoe just slightly to file it out so that it actually fits. Anyway, going forward, I'll drop that on the floor. Going forward, I'm not going to use the 8-inch ones. I'm going to use the standard 7-inch adjusters, but I've actually welded on, or got Simon to weld on, some blocks. These are 10mm thick, so we've got an extra 10mm before we start the adjustment, because I had problems with the drum, the wear on the drum. The drum had been skimmed a couple of mil. I've done the measurements on there. The drum had been skimmed a couple of mil. So I've had these built up, and using the standard, you can see the difference between that and the standard one. And you'll also see that these are the you can get from ESM, East Sussex Miners, the higher, more adjustment, more movement on them, so you can actually buy some extended adjusters. So I'm using these, the extra 10mm, which will give me a lot more adjustment on the brakes. Hopefully that explains it. I'm going to put these back plate back together again now, assemble it up. As I said in the previous video, trying to assemble these brakes up on the car with the hub on is absolutely non-starter. Yeah, you have to be, well, I don't know what you'd have to be, Houdini or some sort of thing. The only way to do it is to take the hub off, remove the hub, and then you can assemble them. But even doing that on the car is a nightmare. So I'm preferring to take, I know it's a lot of work, and having to take the hydraulics off as well, but it's easier to assemble them on the bench, put them together, and then put them back on the car. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to reassemble that now, and then we can make and I'll come back to another video. Right, now I've got the hub on, as you can see, using Simon's nice tool there. I've torqued that up to about 150 Newton meters, sorry, pounds feet, not Newton meters, 150 pound-feet. But you can see now what I'm talking about. Let's take this off and get this out of the way. About being able to get at the brake shoes and springs. It is just a non-starter. Oh, sorry, the light's a bit bright in there. It's just a non-starter. You'll see that the back here that the wheel bolts only just clear the wheel cylinder, but it's enough. I have shown you in the past a video where we've actually ground the top of those off. For some reason the hub was closer, don't know why, but maybe in the back plate wasn't quite the same, but that was a bit closer. But you can see, as I say, down here you cannot get at the springs to work on them. It's an absolute joke. Best thing is have the hub off. Same goes for the front, have the hub off, and you can get at everything nicely. Right, I shall now go and start making up some brake rods. Hopefully this will cure the problem of a handbrake. See how this new gimbal works. Now you can see I've assembled up the back plate onto the axle. I don't know whether you noticed, but I actually put some copper slip under the slave cylinder there to allow it, give it movement, and done the brake pipes, as you can see. Now in there, hopefully you can see, if I can get there we go, I have attached the brake pipe to the top bolt of the locator that locates excuse me, locates the hub, the diff nut, and that also supports the compensator bracket here. I don't know whether you can see with that compensator bracket here, and I'll fix that there, and it goes off on a flexible mounted on the back there. It'll be slightly different for your big 7 men, because obviously this is a special and the bodies are special, so the running of the brake pipes will obviously be down to you. Right, so that's that assembled. All I've got to do now is get the hub back together and then think about making up, well, bleeding the brakes and making up the rods that go across to do the handbrake. Hopefully this will work. We'll see. Okay, I'll get another video in a bit. Well, I finally found the answer, and that was to grind the end down more, grind the start more. Makes life a lot easier. I was really struggling there, but ground a bit more off the start, and it starts really easy. So this is the last thread now. This is on the 50mm one. So, 50 centimetre one rather. So I'm giving this one a little bit of extra thread so that I've got a bit of adjustment on this. Right, I think that should about do it, I think. Ooh, worked up a sweat there. But a good lady brought a cup of tea out. Which was just what was needed. Right. Yeah, not bad thread at all. Not bad thread at all. All four done there, all four ends. That should go on there nice and easy. Yeah, nice and easy. Well, it's back into the other garage now then to try and fit them and see how we get on with them. Well, now I've made up the front to rear rod, as you can see there, and we're connected up here right now. So I've now got to measure this one to this, to the I've got two fittings from I don't know whether it was off eBay or car maker, sorry. Ooh. Or it was off car builder, but I've got some connectors here and at the back, so I've got to measure up there now. I'm going to put this down and measure. Oh. And measure up to make the rods. It looks like it's 39 centimeters. Yeah, 39 on that one. And on the other one, I'll go around the other side and check that. Well, I've measured up now, and I've got some 8mm, well, you can see that, some 8mm bar. Yeah, 8mm bar. The fittings are 5/6. The thread on the fittings is 5/16 BSF. Sorry, UNF. So I'll cut those to length now and die up the ends so that I can make up the rods. Looking at my Zeus tables here, I'm looking at the 5/16. And 5/16 is nearest 8mm, so I should be alright. If I look at the tapping size for 5/16, which is, sorry, bear with me, 5/16 is 3125. So if I look at 3125, 312 is a number 10 flat, yeah, 32 TPR, so that should do, the 8mm should do this nicely. I'm going to have to grind off just the start on these, put on the drill. round a bit off the start. Hopefully that will help with the tapping, or should I say the dyeing. Move this round a bit so you can see the vice alright. Die. Now that's better. That's what I call a die bar. Look at this thing. It's no good at all. Can't get any pressure on it. So just take this out. It was a cheap set, to be fair. Because I've got loads of BSF and Whitworth, but no. Coaches. There we go, that's better. Right, bit of luck, bit lube. Well, I finally found the answer, and that was to grind the end down more, grind the start more. Makes life a lot easier. I was really struggling there, but ground a bit more off the start, and it starts really easy. So this is the last thread now. This is on the 50mm one. So, 50cm one rather. So, I'm giving this one a little bit of extra thread so that I've got a bit of adjustment on this. Right, I think that should about do it, I think. Ooh, worked up a sweat there. But a good lady brought a cup of tea out. Which was just what was needed. Right. Right. Yeah, that's not a bad thread at all. Not bad thread at all. All four done there, all four ends. That should go on there nice and easy. Yeah, nice and easy. Right, back into the other garage now then to try and fit them and see how we get on with them. Right, success at last. I've made up the two brake rods. I'll show you the other side. You may be able to see, I don't know, it's a bit tight, whether you'll see that I've actually spaced the quadrant out. No, you can't see. Let me try and get wrong way. There we go. Bit more, sorry. There we go. Can you see the quadrant? I've spaced out with a few washers to give me clearance on that side, and to give them all a straight pull basically. You could probably get away without doing that, what I've done, but I thought I'd like to space it out sort of half an inch-ish, I think, probably. Yeah, half inch or so, packed out with washers, so that we get a straight pull on the straight pull on the handbrake mechanism. So, results, they actually work. The handbrake works, so that's the result. All I've got to do now is bleed the brakes, and that should be that, hopefully. And I'll get up off the floor now. I'm sorry if these camera angles are a bit dicey. I've got the gimbal, but as I say, grovelling around on the floor. Let me just come around the other side to give you a view of the other side. Oh, garage door's in the way. Right. You can probably see better this side. That space, yeah, just about. Yeah, it gives a straighter pull for the gear lever, for the handbrake linkage. Right, so with that, I'm about to stop videoing. This is where I bought all my Morris Minor brake parts from, ASM Morris Minors. They've got the full set here. The brakes, you'll see there's complete kits. That's the one I recommend for the front kit. Obviously it's 130 quid, 140 quid. The back plates, the cables and the brake pipes and everything. So that's the front stuff. The back stuff, they do separately. Scroll through rear brakes, and you notice they've got the adjusters, set of 4 adjusters there, and the brake back plates for you to modify for the Austin 7. As I say, they've got everything here that you need for converting your Austin 7. So that's the site to use, ASM Morris Minors. That gets you your starting point. The other site I used was Car Builder Solutions. They're useful for all sorts of stuff like fittings and brackets and stuff. Very good website. So if for things like joints and olives and other stuff, Car Builder Solutions is quite a good site to go to. So that's probably the login at Car Builders, and then you can pick up the rest of the stuff you need. They do brake pipe fittings, as you can see, brake pipes. They even got the tools to flare, should you want to flare the tools. So stuff that you might need, consumable should I say, like olives and stuff, you can get from here. Very good website, Car Builder website. So bear that in mind when you're building. Website, www.midlandbrake.com. If you want to give them a ring, or you can send them a message, and they'll sort out your brake shoes for you. Right, I said I'd summarise at the end of this video, and first of all we'll look at the tools that I've used. Obviously you'll need a hub extractor to pull the hub off. You need some way of holding the hub while you're trying to get the hub off. This from Simon Woodhouse Creations, SW Creations. He sells these, so that's a good top item to have in your tool bag. A 3/4 width socket for the half shaft nut, 3/4 width, and for the actual hub nut, locking nut, I've got a 48mm spanner because I couldn't get a deep socket. You need a socket, or a deep socket about 6 inches deep so it can go over. Now the ones that Norman Clegg supplies, is brand new one here from Norman, from from Big7 register are slightly smaller. This one, sorry, get this one, I don't know whether you can see that, hopefully you can see that, is about 46 mil, whereas this one is a fraction larger, 47.5, 48 mil. That's why I've had a 48 mil. That's the original one. Well, I say the original one, I'm assuming it's the original one in the car. That's the ones that Norman supplies. Wonderful job, he's had those done, but they are slightly smaller, so you need to be careful and get a socket that fits, obviously fits that. The other thing is, is obviously this 8-inch or 200mm vernier. Ever so useful. I bought it recently. I had a 6-inch one, but that wasn't big enough obviously for a 7-inch drum to measure up the drums. Obviously you need a torque spanner, decent torque spanner, a drill obviously, and the normal workshop tools. Apart from that, that's about it. One thing I forgot to mention, obviously if you're making up brake pipes, you need a brake pipe cutter and a brake flaring toolkit. Now these are cheap and cheerful off eBay, or as I say, you can get a more expensive one, but for the amount of work that I was doing, this was I think this was off Amazon or eBay, one of the two, but cheap and cheerful. But obviously you do need those if you're going to make up brake pipes. So that'll take care of that. So now we come to the consumables. Obviously I've put together a list of stuff where you get from East Sussex miners. They supply the cylinders and the brake adjusters, etc. Carbuilder.co or .com, sorry, provide a lot of these sort of fittings, the brake fittings, so that's where I got those from. These brake retaining springs and stuff I'll show you in a bit. So most of the stuff is available on the internet via, as I say, eBay, Amazon. East Sussex miners do all the minor bits that you want, the back plates and all of that sort of stuff, so that's great stuff. And those are, say, off eBay. Other consumables wise, I obviously had to buy some rod. I bought some stainless steel 8mm rod because these fittings were 516 UNF. That and that for the, that's for the compensator end. That goes on at the compensator end, yeah. So as I say, I've got 8mm. So obviously you'll need a tap and die set for UNF or metric. You could use metric. If you buy metric, obviously you need a metric set. So you also need, as I say, on the consumable side, a 8mm or whatever size you decide to make the rods. Right, as you all know, I had trials and tribulations with the actual drums and shoes themselves. Simon had skimmed the drums up for me. He'd only taken a couple of mil off, but it's enough to skim them up. And this one, for instance, is 180 mil. And when I assembled a standard back plate with the adjuster at its lowest level, and we checked the depth of that, you'll see that it's just over 178. 178 it was. I'll just knock that down again. 177, 178. So obviously you need a good movement on the adjuster to get the brakes to work properly. So what I've done is I didn't use the 8-inch adjusters in the end, because they've only got the same adjustment as the standard ones. I packed out, or I got Simon to pack out with a 10mm packer there, so that we get the right amount of movement. The only problem with that is, having second thoughts about it, is that obviously it only works on, because we're packing this end, it's only working on half of the shoe, so not ideal. So the answer is, go find a set of old shoes if you can, do your measurements, etc., and measure up the brake shoe itself, not the measure up the brake shoe. Oops, sorry, let's just do this. Measure up the brake shoe itself, and that's 67 there, 67, can you see that? And then if you send the brake linings off to another Simon at Midland Brake and ask him to fit 8mm or 6mm or whatever the difference is between the two on your brake shoes, obviously half, because you've got half on this one and half on that one, so you don't want obviously too much. But if you send them off to Midland Brake, they'll make up the shoe for you. You can use the standard adjuster then, and Bob's your uncle. Going back to retaining the shoes, I've said about these are the Morris Minor ones, and they are a pain to get through and hook into there like that. So useful to note, I've got some big cable ties here, ever so useful while you're assembling, keeps them in place. Because the springs on the 7 conversion are this side of the shoe, on the Morris Minor they're on the rear side of the shoe, so they don't get as much pull that way. Can you see that on the shoe? So we can't get on with those. So what I did do, I'll show you on the older one, I flattened those off and drilled through a hole through there to allow us to use this type, and so you can get them on the eBay and places like that. They use this type of connector, retainer, goes through there, the pin goes through, and Bob's your uncle. So that takes care of that, so that's definitely the way forward with that. The other thing that became a problem, obviously, was the movement on here on the handbrake. We'd got that much movement, can you see that, before any actuation, and we've only got 2 centimeters of movement on the, or 20mm, on the rods. So Simon made up a plastic and then made up a steel version to replace those, which has done the job. We obviously cut the top off there because we are actuating from about there, as I showed on the videos. Now if you haven't got access to a machine shop and you've got a MIG, you could, in fact, this is a standard lever arm, you could actually build up that arm by 2 or 3mm, which is what was needed. If you can see that on the video, can you see that extra bit? You could build that up with weld, flatten it off, and then obviously drill the hole through the center there. So that, I mean, I was lucky. I've got Simon who can knock that up for me, and he's knocked a couple sets up for me actually while we were trying. So that you could build that up, a couple of weld, and then cut that off there, drill through, and then you're good to go. So that's what I would do, as I say, if I haven't got a machine shop. If you've got a MIG welder, even a small MIG welder would be enough to build that up. The front brake setup, I haven't done much on that on the videos because it is ever so straightforward. Obviously you get the back plates and the cylinders and the brake pipes and the flexes from East Sussex miners. Get someone to modify the back plates for you, and then it's a fairly straightforward fit, to be fair. The only thing is to try and find a bracket off the chassis, around that bracket off the chassis to obviously mount the flexible to, and then the let's see if we can see under here the brake pipes I've run across down. Can you see? Can you see the brake pipe? I've got the brake switch there, the brake light switch there, the a four-way goes to the back, comes up to the I've put, this is my reservoir, the I don't know whether you can see it down there, but the master cylinder is down there. I'm lucky because it's not a Big 7. I think on a Big 7 you're going to have to mount the master cylinder. You're going to have to shop around to find a master cylinder that will work. If I can show you this under here, I think you might be able to get in there. Oh. And you see there's the master cylinder off my brake pedal there. I don't think you're going to be able to do that with the Big 7. I think you're probably going to have to, bear with me, probably going to have to come off the brake. There's the brake cross shaft. I think you're going to have to mount it on the chassis under here, off that brake cross shaft. There's the pin. So you could mount it anywhere on the chassis, or make brackets off that front cross member there to, hopefully you can see that, off the cross member there, to put the master cylinder on, to give you that movement. As I say, look, I'm lucky in some ways that this is a special. So I've got made things up as I've gone round and found things, as I say, at those places. That should do you. I hope you found this useful. This car's up and running now, thank heaven. So, because I've got a track day at Kerborough next month. So I was panicking a bit to get it finished off, because as I say, it's been an epic. I'll put it that way, it's been an epic to get the handbrake to work properly. But now I'm all set up and a happy bunny. So there we go. I hope you found it useful. As I say, I'll put some connections to Midland Brake, East Sussex Miners, Simon Woodhouse Creations, so that you can follow those up.